today we're going to be creating one of my 3 centerpieces for my wedding using this cloak and turning it into this. The things that I used to go ahead and create this look is a wood stain, a church's key so that we can get the can open, of course, a mixing stick, some paint brushes just in case I needed to do any detailing, the sponge brushes to do the staining, and gloves just so that I did not make a mess. I also went ahead and picked up some of the gel super glue. I found that it works better. Some jute twine, and I also picked up some reindeer moss from the Dollar Tree. So let's go ahead and get started. So I have never stained anything in my life, so I went ahead and asked my fiance to go ahead and do the staining on the first half of the centerpieces, just so we can see, you know, what the color is going to come out to look like, how many coats we needed to do. We went ahead and went with the Gunsmoke, I believe it's called, stain. It comes out so pretty once it's dry. It kind of has like this mahogany, a reddish mahogany look to it. I do have a picture of what they look like dry later on in the video, just so you can see. The camera does make it look a lot darker than it really is, but it is not. So he went ahead and stained the top portion of the wooden base first, just so that we could go ahead and be able to flip it upside down on that reflective part on top of just a bottle or a can that we had laying around. Then that allowed us to go ahead and stain the sides and then the top last, so that we didn't get smudges or any fingerprints, and it just made for a clean application. The stain that we bought did say that it was a fast drying and it should only take about 2 hours to dry. However, we did find out that after the first 2 hours of it drying, it was sticky and it wasn't fully dry. It might have been because we went ahead and left them on the dining room table to dry rather than putting them outside, which most likely would have changed the drying time on them. But we did go ahead and let them sit out for 24 hours, and this is what they looked like. Once they were dry, I went ahead and began to do the decorations for the glass portion of the cloak. So what I went ahead and did was I attached the glass to the base so that I could go ahead and make a mark using a dry erase marker so that I know where I want my jute to start at. Once I marked the glass, I went in with my super glue and I just put a very small portion right over that green dot that I had made earlier. Then I attached my jute twine and allowed it to dry a little bit. I then went ahead and grabbed the base and attached the glass so that I can ensure that the jute is sitting right above the wooden cloak so that you wouldn't be able to see any glass in between. Once I found out that that was a perfect portion, I went ahead and wrapped it once around the glass. I then put a small amount of super glue right where the jute originally started at so that I can create a seamless line. Once that was dry, I also added some super glue right above where the jute originally started at, so that I can go ahead and get it as close as possible to the original starting point so that you can't see any gaps in the jute. So this is what it looks like up close once I finished super gluing those little detailed pieces. I then went ahead and began wrapping the jute around the glass. I originally was only going to wrap it those couple layers that you are seeing right now. However, once I grabbed my wooden base and placed it down, I felt like it didn't look like it had enough jute to it, and I did want it to go higher up the glass, so I did end up wrapping it around a total of 7 times. And I'm glad that I did that, because once I got the reindeer moss in there and the candle, I just felt like it was the perfect height and it was beautiful. Once I got to my stopping point, I went ahead and placed some super glue right on top of the jute. It's a little hard for you to see because I am out of frame right now. However, I went ahead and laid the jute that I'm ending with right on top of the jute that I've already wrapped so that it could dry and create a nice seamless look. I then took some scissors and I snipped off where I wanted the jute to stop at. After snipping that off, I did have just a little bit of a flyaway, so I went back with my super glue and I put a little bit right underneath the little flap that was sticking up. And once I did that, I was able to get it to lay down where it is nice and seamless. So this is what the cloak looks like, fully wrapped and stained, before I go ahead and start adding in the filling. So what I'm gonna do now is just take about less than a handful of the reindeer moss. And as you can see in a minute, you don't need a lot. I think like out of one of those bags, I can probably fill about 6 of the cloaks. So I probably only need like 2 bags. I went ahead and placed it down on the base, and I tried to get as much of the stragglers from off of the edges as I possibly could. I then took a tea light candle. I do plan on using a candle that's a 2x3. However, I did not have any currently, so I just used a tea light in its place. So I put that in the center, and once again, you do see me trying to get most of the moss inside of the cloak. And I went ahead and put on the lid. I then took scissors, or you can use a stick if you have it, and inserted it through the top just so that I can kind of fluff up the reindeer moss and get it up the sides a little more, just so that it's not as flat. So this is the final look of my centerpiece. If you do want to see me make the second piece to my wedding centerpiece, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and subscribe.